Welcome back to the Anxious to Secure podcast. I'm Yula, and today is part 3 of a little Q&A we're doing about anxious attachment style, and especially today we're talking about the anxious-avoidant relationship cycle. Questions like, can this anxious-avoidant dynamic really work? How do they attract each other in the first place, these two attachment styles? How does the anxious partner mirror the avoidance from childhood? And what's the one thing you can try today to shift into secure patterns and also break this cycle? By the way, today the microphone has been always cutting off and turning into manual mode, meaning the audio quality might be very bad, or the listening quality for you if this happens again. But I've tried now my best to keep avoiding this, so my apologies already beforehand if this should happen. Disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or doctor. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or heal any mental health condition. If you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with severe mental health challenges, always seek professional advice. So question 1 is, can the anxious avoidant relationship really work? As you have been maybe following me on my journey, I've been with my avoidant partner now for about it's been now 5 years. So yes, it can definitely work, and if you put the time and effort in and not focus overly on your partner, what they are doing, and really focus on you first especially, and later on it can create a shift into the us dynamic. And yeah, opposites also attract, and that's also true here. The anxious partner often thinks the avoidant is so distant, and then takes everything as a personal rejection. And that's what I used to think about my partner when he was more distant, and when he was on his phone, when he couldn't comfort me in a way when I felt triggered or anxious or sad about things. And I was like, why is he not like hugging me? Why is he not making me feel okay again? And I didn't realize that he was triggered too, and he had a different way of coping. And I have learned, not just in my relationship, then later helping clients as well in the same dynamics, that the avoidant isn't pulling back because of you. It's because they're pulling away because of themselves, because of their past and their wounds, and because of their emotions and triggers. So they're trying to self-soothe and more often avoiding their own emotions. So at least their system's trying to cope with emotions in the best way and form. They have learned to protect themselves and to keep them safe. And that's a key point, to not take it as a personal rejection, to realize, hey, they're coping with them and that's their survival method, and you have your own. And that's a survival strategy. And the anxious partner really wants closeness, and like words of affirmation or physical closeness and emotional closeness and co-regulation to feel safe again, while the avoidant partner unfortunately wants the opposite. So they want space and really need space to feel safe. They go quiet maybe, or shutting down, or maybe they just need physical space as well and time alone to calm down, to cope with emotions. And maybe you've noticed that after may this be 10 minutes, may this be half an hour, may this be even 3 hours, or depending on what was going on in your relationship or with them and with their life in general, with stress, maybe it might be even longer than this, a day or two. So the more we understand about our partner and attachment theory and the upbringing about the specific person, the more we drop into curiosity, and then we can go from there and see it from a different perspective. That's what I've really learned and helped me so much. And it's not making an excuse, but really truly understanding, hey, this is how we react and what makes us feel safe, and this is my partner and their stress language, their upbringing, and it makes so much sense and it's not personal. And understanding this was huge for me and my relationship and my clients as well. So question 2 is, what made the biggest difference in breaking this pattern? I went first, I would say. So I stopped waiting for him to change. I focused on what I can do, really, what I can control. My anxiety, my reactions, my thoughts and my triggers and my healing, my attachment style, really shifting into security, no matter if my relationship would work out or not. I wanted to heal my fears, because my fears are not because of my partner, it's because they have been always there. They're in every single relationship. They have been with my friends, with my colleagues, with new people I meet. I created social anxiety over time. They have been in my previous relationships. They have been always there in every situation I come across, even if it's just like a new challenge. Let's say work asked me to travel to this factory and quality control garments, and I had to communicate with this manager or with this boss of the factory that these garments are not okay to be going into production, and I had to reject their work. So for me that was a huge thing. I felt personal, I rejecting them and their work, and all the amazing people who sewed those garments, it means they had to redo them again. And it's in every single challenge and every single thing in life, it was holding me back, and it made me feel guilty and uncomfortable and insecure, and I was always in my head and worrying about things. Even when I was little, I was always worrying about 10 things ahead, like how do people take a bus, how do they take airplanes, I'm never going to be able to know where the bus goes and where the bus takes me, and how to pay for things. I always worried about the craziest things. The same is true now. If you have an anxious attachment style, you might not worry about those things anymore, but about other things, about what happens if your partner leaves, what if they cheat on you, what if you can't handle that, what if you have to find a new flat again, or find new friends and you'll be alone, and all of these things that might never happen, and maybe things you'll be able to cope much better with than you actually have it planned out in your worst case scenario. I stopped taking his actions as personal rejection. I stopped adding meaning also into things, like because of Ty Gibson always says humans are meaning making machines. So we're adding meaning into everything. So if your partner pulls away, our brain makes this mean something negative about ourselves. This means I am worthless, or I'm not good enough, or I'm too much. Let's say your partner wants a divorce. You make this mean you're completely broken, and if your partner's a bit quiet, shutting down, again, you make this something mean about yourself, about your relationship, about that you maybe did something wrong in the end. And it's important that we don't just add meaning into things. First of all, it's normal, but we want to realize what is the meaning we add to things. Meaning, this is our limiting belief, and then we want to be curious and challenging these limiting beliefs. This was huge for me. And then to find ways how to rewire our brain and our limiting beliefs and our stories and challenge them, and find methods to do this. And I only teach this in my upcoming course that launches eventually this year for sure, but I've been saying this for now over a year, and I'm pouring my heart into this. So my Anxiously Secure course will come out with so much good things, but I'm not naturally a good course creator, so it takes me ages to do this. I don't want to be too hard on myself on this anymore, so I'm just gonna detach from the outcome when this will be launched. But when launched, it's gonna be amazing, and there are gonna be so much methods for rewiring your limiting beliefs and your stories you have about yourself, about your relationship, and how to not add meaning into things, and a structured, very easy way. And that was really huge for me, and realizing that triggers, our triggers are about us, and our partner's triggers are about them. So if they are triggered about something, this points towards something about their past and their core wounds. Like avoidant attachment people are often triggered about feeling trapped, being emotionally overwhelmed, and feeling when they're smothered, or when we become closer to them and try to push for things, or trying to be more in control and really give them deadlines, or like saying, hey, you need to step it up, or use like you language, you need to do this, or why haven't you done this. They're feeling often blamed, and they feel really not good enough, and they feel they are flawed. They're really feeling there's something wrong with them, and then they're feeling triggered even more, and that's their core wounds that's coming up. And we are only the ones who are triggering their core wounds. It's not our fault, but we can take responsibility and saying, hey, what can we do to not trigger their core wounds intentionally. And the same thing is true for the avoidant partner. If we know our core wounds, if we know rejection and abandonment, for example, is a huge core wound for us, we can then, first of all, give this to ourselves first. We can be there for ourselves and not abandon ourselves, not reject our own needs and emotions and fill our cup first ourselves. Then, when we are full and come into the relationship, then we can ask for our needs in a healthier, more detached way and say, hey, you know what, I'm working here on my wound and I feel really rejected when this and this happens, and I would really love it if we can keep in touch twice a day at the moment. How does this work for you? It's much more different if it's like you never text me during the day, and you never do this, and it makes me feel so sad. And this is this, huge heaviness that you put on your partner, where how they receive it as like, I am doing something wrong, you are attacking me, and then they become defensive. So really focusing on what can you do to make yourself feel seen and safe and not abandoned, not rejected, and then what can you do to understand your partner more, and then you can become more a team over time as well and understand each other better. Of course, only if your partner is actually really invested in your relationship, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to tell with avoidance, and I've got a previous video on that about, are they avoidant or just not into you? If you're interested in that, and if you're doubting that your partner is actually into you, or if they're, if it's just an avoidant attachment style, and if it's just their coping method. And by avoiding pointing fingers and just really looking at ourselves, because if we point a finger, there's like, was it 4 fingers pointing back at ourselves? So we can really take accountability for what we can control, and focusing on things we can't control, really that's the thing that creates the anxiety. So always focus on you and what you can do, even if your brain wants to tell you, no, it's dangerous to focus away from your partner, away from the threat, because it feels like your partner is kind of a threat. You need to watch them, you're being hyper vigilant around them, but they are not. And of course, a huge thing about really making a change in the long term was becoming securely attached. It was the ultimate thing that you can do to really break the cycle and create a more, like a secure foundation, not just in your relationship, but also, of course, for yourself. I started then being less critical of my partner and what he did wrong in my eyes, and was less chasing him maybe for like quality time, and being, more affectionate and asking him to fill my bucket and to show up in a certain specific way, and rather to focus on how can I self-soothe today when I feel anxious and overwhelmed. And it's so hard at the beginning because it's so much easier to just tell our partner how we want to be loved instead of loving ourselves. Because if you hated yourself maybe first, hated your body, the way you talk, the way you showed up in life, it feels better if someone else gives you that, especially someone who you love and adore. But in the end, we kind of all know that it has to come from ourselves first. And then everything else just becomes like a huge bonus on top. And that creates a ripple effect in your relationship as well. That creates like a whole new vibration and raises their energy. And you just feel so much safer, because the safety doesn't rely and depend on someone else, what they say. If they give you flowers on Valentine's Day or chocolate, if they really spent the weekend with you and you were able to put yourself first and say, what do I actually want and how can we combine it? And you're actually coming as two full whole people together, and then saying, hey, what do we want? Can we combine this? It's like when we order food. It's like you don't always have to find a compromise 50-50. Sometimes you can order, pizza for one person and Subway for the other person, You don't always have to meet 50-50 exactly in the middle. Like you're two complete full human beings and you're living together basically, and you can go at different times to bed. You don't have to always do everything together all the time. That used to be me as an anxious attached person. I always thought, love is this thing where you do everything together, you wake up together, you cuddle in bed, and if your partner doesn't do all of these things, then that's not love. But that's more the highly romanticized version of myself that really was setting myself up for failure and for disappointment. And what I wanted to say is, so yes, anxious-avoidant relationships can survive and even thrive in the most parts. I've seen this so many times when one just takes when one person makes a start to break the cycle, it creates a ripple effect. So one, realize really distance is not personal. Second, lead with your own healing first and focus on what you can control. And I would say third is remove the patterns you're adding that sabotage the bond. Like, what are you doing that adds to this fuel, to the hot and cold behaviors? Usually anxious attachment is like you're activated, you're in your activated energy. And for the avoidant, it's there in the deactivated energy. Meaning the avoidant shuts down and withdraws and runs away while you are going after them, while you are fixing the problem right now. You want to talk it out and you want them to self-soothe you. So you can break only your patterns and your partner can only break theirs, but it takes one person to start this dynamic. And also, if your growth then still doesn't move the needle in your relationship, then maybe this person is not meant for you. Not that the avoidant or the anxious relationship can't work. And it might be a scary thought right now, but if you have done the work so far, your fear of abandonment won't keep you in that relationship. You already have done so much healing work that you are wanting a healthy and loving relationship, and you know it's possible, and you're not able to be stuck in a relationship where you don't get your needs met either. So you're able to walk away much easier from a detached way and say, you know what, I'm excited for a new chapter. I can grieve this one right now, and I just want the best for my partner right now, but I also know I deserve better than this. That was a very long answer. Next question is, why do they attract each other in the first place? So the anxious and the avoidant. Okay, that's a great question as well, and it's really important to realize. By the way, that kind of combines the question of people always saying, oh, just walk away, just find a securely attached person. And that kind of gives the same answer to this, because it doesn't just work. You can't just leave your avoidant partner thinking you just find your Prince Charming around the corner who's securely attached. Because we're always drawn to the emotional experience from our childhood, from our past. So not because it was healthy, because it was familiar. That's why the anxious and avoidant dynamic felt like this magnetic chemistry, but also it creates this confusion and this pain and this addiction. So it's your nervous system repeating the past from not like your past relationship only, but really from your childhood, even when you were a baby. If you think maybe even you had a happy childhood, there might have been still other things going on. So from the anxious side, maybe you grew up with an on-off love kind of dynamic. And sometimes there was love and warmth and connection, and sometimes not though. And your brain has learned then to cling, or you will lose the parents or the connection. And you have learned that closeness means safety. So that was really important for you. For example, for me, I remember when I looked at pictures from my past, I always was hiding behind my mother or even behind my big sister. So it was typical for me. Then the avoidant though, maybe your partner, for example, or even friends, they grew up they most likely more grew up in an environment where they felt more like smothered or overly responsible, and their brain has more learned that then space feels safe, and they wanted then more like, hey, you know what, I need to take care of myself, don't come too close. It doesn't feel good if you're always hovering around me. Now later on, this is exactly what they're attached to, because again, that's familiar, even though they're not realizing this, that is happening subconsciously. So when they then meet, the anxious and the avoidant, for example, in the dating stage, it feels exciting and chemistry, because you have the butterflies in your tummy, and literally this is your survival system kicking in and warning you. But you're not aware of this yet. You think, oh my God, this is love, this is excitement, and we've all been there, I guess. And this is your nervous system telling you this is danger, and it's also familiar. And your brain loves familiar, even if it's unsafe, even if it's not good for you, because it's predictable. So, but then after the honeymoon phase, that chemistry starts to feel triggering. First, we're attracted to this behavior because it's familiar, but then we get triggered by that exact behavior. So the thing that we were first drawn to each other becomes then the thing that hurts us the most. That's super annoying, and I've been there, and my clients too, and I'm sure you you're familiar with this too now, hearing this. Let me know in the YouTube comments if this sounds familiar, or I think even on Spotify comments. So it's like their partner turns into this living, breathing memory from your past. So then the anxious starts to feel abandoned again all over, because maybe the avoidant doesn't show up emotionally in the same way. And the avoidant starts to feel trapped again, because maybe you, or the anxious partner, then it's a little bit more like smothering, a little bit more like too much, in air quotes. You're not being too much, but like too much for the avoidant, meaning you want a lot of quality time, or ask to get your needs met through the avoidant in a way that the avoidant can't fill your bucket. And suddenly love feels unsafe again, and it's not real compatibility. It's like two nervous system and reenacting an old wound from both of you. I'm drinking out of my giant water bottle here, if you can see it on YouTube. And the last question for today is, what is the first thing you can recommend for anyone with an anxious attachment style that they can try today? So start by tracking your patterns, because everything begins with awareness. So maybe grab a pen and paper right now, like a notebook or a journal, and write this down. Speak. And this is my speak model. So SPEAK. And S stands for situation. It's like the triggering situation. That is just a neutral circumstance. So that is the moment that made you feel upset, but it is literally just a neutral thing. For example, your partner goes quiet after a long day. Second step is P. This is your point of view. You're going to ask yourself, what is the meaning you give to that situation, to the triggering situation. Again, and this is the point now where you turn the neutral thing into black and white thoughts usually. And an example is, he's annoyed with me. That is your thought, right? And later on in my coaching, I always then go even deeper and find the core wound here. But right now, this is enough at the beginning. So the situation was, my partner goes quiet after a long day. You make it mean that he's annoyed with you. Then the next step is emotion. E for emotion. How do you feel when you think that thought? That's important. You want to realize that your emotion is created by your thought, by your point of view. It's not the situation that is creating your emotion, it's your thought. When you think out loud, he's annoyed with me, how do you feel? Maybe you're not feeling good enough, so inadequate. Maybe feeling worthless or anxious. Write down their emotions. Ideally one, because we want to focus on one triggering event. So one situation, one point of view, and one emotion. It's a little bit easier to realize the chain of events. And then next step is A. A for action, or it could be also inaction. So how do you act or behave when you feel this emotion? Let's say you're feeling not good enough or worthless or anxious. How do you act now? How do you behave around your partner or in the situation? Maybe you're overthinking a lot. Maybe you're in your head. Maybe you're worrying about everything, about your future of the relationship, about yourself not being good enough or being too much. Or maybe you're being snappy at your partner. Maybe you're criticizing him or texting him. Maybe you're being passive aggressive. Here you can write down all of the things, because the more things you really write down, you already start to rewire your brain a little bit for realizing, hey, these are all the things that are actually happening because of my thoughts, because of how I felt, and how it impacted my behavior, and not because of the situation, but because of my thoughts about the situation. That's key to realize. And then the last step is K. K stands for key results. So what is the thing that actually happened because of your actions? What happened because of your actions? Let's say, another word is like your consequences. The consequences for yourself, maybe for your health, for your physical health, for your mental health, for your relationship, even for your partner. Everything that is, the consequence out of this, and you can focus on one thing or on several things. I think the biggest key result could be here they created disconnection, and maybe the goal of the whole thing was, being in a relationship is actually to create a connection. And if you realize you just created a disconnection, that is really important to realize, because this speak model is not to blame you or your partner. It's literally just to create an awareness and realizing, hey, you know what, my thoughts are really powerful, and my emotions and my actions as well, but my thoughts is the one that creates this ripple effect. It's not what my partner did. is not an excuse, and I don't want to make an excuse for him, but actually if I would think differently, if I now just practice putting in different thoughts in this P line, in the point of view line, when I'm regulated and when I process my emotions and all of this, and just play around with it and see how do I feel then with this new thought, and how would I behave then, and what results would I have created then. This changes the game completely. But for now, you only want to do the speak model over and over again with all of the upcoming triggers, because this will make you realize you have control in your relationship much more than you think. And again, it's not to just say it's all your fault. You are 50% part of the problem, but 100% the solution as well. So do this as often as possible. Notice how it is not the situation itself that is causing your feelings. It's your thoughts about the situation that creates the emotions and the actions, and then influences the key results in the end. And your partner is just being quiet or stressed is a neutral thing, but we're turning into like either black or white things, and we want to notice that there are also gray areas in between. So when you track this, you can start seeing that shifting your thoughts and your emotions and actions are the things you can actually control, and that will create in the end a ripple effect in your relationship as well. By the way, if you like to go deeper into healing your anxious attachment style or working on specific triggers, I have, for example, a text and talk support. It's a monthly subscription where I guide you through daily and weekly anxiety challenges or monthly goals. Super flexible, commitment free, and this is my most affordable, personalized support you can get from me. Otherwise, you can explore mini courses if you're an overthinker or struggle with text anxiety, all linked below underneath the YouTube video or in the show notes if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. And if you are ready to go all in and heal your anxious attachment style and want my bi-weekly coaching calls, like my 4 or 8 month coaching container, that includes my Anxious to Secure course, which includes the whole shebang, and you had your I am done moment, I'm excited to welcome you into this program. If you will jump on a free call with me to make really sure you are a great fit for this program, or if you're curious into the text and talk support, then I'm happy to check out if you're a right match. And I'm so glad you're here listening with me. If you've made it all the way to the end of the episode, well done you. You're already doing the work. And remember, change in your relationship starts with you, thought by thought, action by action. And now, episode by episode. Lots of love, Yula. Bye bye.